Hi, I'm Stephanie White, General Manager. Here at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium, we are celebrating 10 years of operations and the birth of Weedy sea dragons. It is a rare and special occurrence as it first happened in aquariums in 2001, and fewer than 20 facilities worldwide have had this success. It's a true testament to our animal care team, and what a great way to kick off a year of celebrations.
We're lucky enough in early 2020, right before COVID closures happened, to have our first egg transfer with our animals. And like a lot of new parents, a lot of animals in the world, that first run is a bit of a trial run, and it wasn't successful, unfortunately, but we were able to learn from that process and refocus in on what we were doing and make some adjustments.
September of 2021, we had another egg transfer. And at that point, we had started cycling their water temperature and their light cycle to closely match what it would be like in their natural habitat in Australia. So when in September we had the egg transfer, the male carried the eggs, and then towards the end of September, our first hatchling was born on September 28th. And they have since grown a lot. And we're keeping them at a constant temperature in the back until we know they're stable, and then we'll eventually start cycling their temperature and light as well.
The male does all the parental care basically during that brooding time, but they're exposed to the wild the entire time, which is a really interesting thing for us. It allows us the opportunity to monitor that development closer than we could if it was a seahorse with it all hidden inside of its pouch. So throughout the process of our hatchings here at Greater Cleveland Aquarium, we were able to monitor that egg development, watch the actual fry inside the eggs moving around and developing. There's a bit of color change that goes on with the eggs over time, and that leads to the hatching, and we can actually watch that hatching come up on an hour-by-hour instance in some cases over the course of several days. One of the things that surprised me the most, as a silly little detail, was the hatchings always happen tail first. In my brain, I actually presumed that it was a head first hatching like you see in a lot of other animals. But in just about every single one that we saw, there's a period of time where the hatchling is trying to work its way out of the egg casing. And they'll be wiggling off the side of the adult for a little while, sometimes 5-10 minutes up to half an hour or so maybe. Every time we were able to witness that, it was always tail first, which really kind of surprised me.
So once we noticed that the eggs were on the male, and I took a minute to realize what was happening and to calm down a little bit, I started getting the exhibit ready by putting a screen inside the tank so that if any of the hatchlings were born while we weren't standing here and watching at that exact moment, it would force the hatchlings to stay in the tank and not take a ride down to any of our filters. Once we saw the hatchling, we would slowly coax it up with a net towards the surface of the water, and then I would take a plastic critter keeper and just scoop it out of the water. Never actually came out of the water, which was really important to me. Once it was in the critter keeper, we would acclimate it to its holding tank in the back and then put it in the holding tank. That's where they would start growing up.
The exhibit design here at Greater Cleveland Aquarium is very unique, and we're oddly lucky enough because of the location we're in. So we're actually in an old historic power plant. It was a coal-burning facility that powered trolley cars back at the turn of the century. And down this long hallway we're sitting in right now is what we were told is where the coal cars would come through and dump their load for the furnaces. And the big archways that each of our exhibits are developed into is where that would happen. So we had these unique, tall, skinny exhibits that sometimes are a bit of a fussy thing to find animals to put in. But with the sea dragons, because of their needs, it actually made a perfect fit, particularly when we get towards this end of their life stage where they're mating. They have a very intricate mating dance where they kind of zigzag around each other, but as they do, they go further and further up the water column in height. And if you don't have enough distance up, then they can't complete that whole dance. And until they finish the entire dance, the entire courtship, the female will not deposit her eggs on the male's tail. So giving them more than enough room, we've got near 7.5 feet of distance for them, really made it a perfect fit for them to be able to accomplish this amazing feat.
One of the things that surprised me the most was just how quickly they actually grow. It's amazing to look at them from day one to now, and all the features in them have started to come out. Their little leafy appendages have started to develop, and they look completely different, and it's just happened so fast. even if I would be gone for a weekend, I'd come back and see huge changes, and that just always surprised me.
Weedy sea dragons are in the same family as pipefish and seahorse. They're actually in the half with the pipefish, they're a bit closer related to those guys. When you're looking at them from a body shape, their biology, morphology, they're going to have that long snout like a seahorse, and a long body without the prehensile tail that the seahorses have. When we talk about them, often people will mention fun facts like they don't have stomachs and they're always eating all the time. And that is true of the entire family. Now with that, they're actually a very particular high-level predator. They're going to be looking for little tiny food items of crustaceans and amphipods and tiny larval fish out on the reefs and the waters that they live in. And they're going to eat that through that long snout that they've got. It's got a little tiny trap door at the end, and they're going to suck their food up. Think about it as trying to eat through a cocktail straw, basically. So they're very particular about the food sources they get. And then as you get to the hatchlings, the young like we have, they're even smaller food items.
So when they were first newborn, we were actually feeding them 48-hour nauplii, which is the same thing that we feed our jellyfish. As they started to get a little bit bigger, I was trying to offer some of the smaller live mysids, which we get in. And at this point now, they're eating adult mysids, and I'm also mixing in some frozen mysids. The goal is to eventually get the hatchlings onto all frozen food. That's what the adults are currently on. It's a little easier for us when we can have frozen food to offer them rather than having to worry about live food either being shipped in or us also taking care of an extra tank of live food.
And now we've gotten to a new stability point where we're able to share these with the public and put these hatchlings on exhibit. Right now, this is our next stop on the evolution of this process for us. And as they continue to grow here in the exhibit behind me, we'll have to monitor that size of animals to make sure they're not overcrowded in the display. And we'll be moving them on and off exhibit as we need to manage that population. So it'll always be a little different when you come to visit. Eventually, the next big major milestone that the industry keeps track of is the 1 year mark. Very few facilities have gotten their animals to that 1 year mark. We've talked some of the other talking points that you heard Stephanie mention earlier about the few facilities that have done this and how many have done it. That number shrinks even more when you get to how many animals were successfully raised to 1 year. So stay tuned. The 1 year birthday party will be a big event.
I'm really excited that the public is going to start to come into the aquarium soon and be able to see these guys. I've obviously put in a lot of work to get them to this point, and it's something that many people haven't been able to see throughout the world. This is not a very common thing to happen. So having these sea dragons on exhibit is very exciting for me.
I've been here at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium since we opened, since construction, and in the 10 years that I've been here, this is absolutely one of the biggest highlights for me. Not just here, but also just in my career in general from working at other facilities. This is a huge accomplishment. We're so very lucky to have been able to witness this here and be part of it. And getting to see this evolution of this exhibit go on display with the adults, watch them grow from juveniles to adults, go through this whole process. It's an amazing milestone for the aquarium here to be able to share with our guests where we are with this.